This is Let Us Interrupt You here on Friday, February 24th, 2023. I am Joseph Alvo. There is no Mike. Mike will make it tomorrow, if possible. Hopefully it is tomorrow because we're having debate episodes tomorrow on the show. Hopefully he's ready to debate. I think he's down for it sometimes. Sometimes he is, sometimes he isn't. Sometimes he's not really active on this show. I get it. The kid's almost impossible to deal with here on this show, believe me. Like I said before, and I'll say it again, I am looking for a replacement, possibly, or a third co-host, or three people altogether that know about sports in reality. I am looking for a replacement at this point. It's been a long time coming. Although Mike will still be on the show as much. Maybe he'll fill in sometime, but not be a permanent co-host on this show. But anyway, actually, I want to get the show going, actually, by acknowledging something that I need to apologize for. It was on Tuesday that I messed up an article on here that may have screwed up Dolly Parton and Tom Selleck. It was a WikiLeaks false link. So no one has told me to apologize for this. In fact, a lot of people didn't even know I even did this. So for anybody who watched the show this week or listened or whatever you all did, if you had a chance to listen to the show, I may have messed up twice on that, and I apologize. I also apologize for not getting to the NASCAR news. I completely forgot. At that point, I was already embarrassed enough by my flop that I just needed to end it right there and then. But Ricky Stenhouse Jr. ended his 199 winless streak, so he got his first win in the Daytona 500. That was last Sunday. Congrats to him. Other than that, I got that out of the way. Hopefully, I don't have to freaking repeat myself again with this. I don't know what this thing is malfunctioning right now. It's my phone and my computer both going up at the same time with two different songs playing. But I will start with some NFL news today, which has got people talking at this point. Matt Patricia almost became the defensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos, although in reality it was never going to happen. Rex Ryan almost became the defensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos, but that also did not happen. It was Vance Joseph, the former head coach for the Denver Broncos from 2017 to 2018. Now is a defensive coordinator now for Sean Payton's team. And if you may have noticed right now, I do got some paint on me, so if you notice any paint right there in my arm, it's right there. Anyway. Couple of things I want to bring up about the whole idea of bringing in Vance Joseph. I think the idea of bringing in Vance Joseph right now I think it's kind of strange. I think it's kind of odd. I don't think he was the right choice. I think personally to be the next coordinator for Sean Payton's team, defensive mindset team. Vance Joseph is not a defensive-minded head coach. If you want my honest opinion, he's not that great of a coordinator as a defense. And if anything, he was more of a helpful guy on offense and really a guy that really helped out Paxton Lynch out for a little bit. He was more like a quarterback whisperer, I think, when it came to really helping out Paxton Lynch, because at the time, if you would remember when Vance Joseph was around, so was Von Miller. Von Miller was one of the most intimidating defensive players in the Denver Broncos roster. When they practiced, he was physical. So it was basically like a way of preparing for the kid to start in the NFL. As of now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken here, Paxton Lynch is actually in the XFL. I don't even know if that's even true or not. But I guess he's the only quarterback that's ever been in the XFL, USFL, CFL, and the NFL at the same time, and USFL. So he's the only quarterback ever to be benched in the NFL, CFL, and actually XFL. So that's how bad he is. So. I actually didn't even see the benching part of it, but he's the only quarterback to ever play in all those leagues as well. So, and to be benched, so he is a bust for the Broncos. But luckily, he's not going to be the quarterback for the Broncos. Obviously, that trait belongs to Russell Wilson, and he made the headlines today in a big way, asking for Pete Carroll and General Manager John Schneider to be fired. This is report according to Sports Illustrated, written by Dan Loynes. The Seahawks traded star quarterback Russell Wilson to the Broncos in March of 2022 in one of the most significant moves of last year's NFL offseason. According to The Athletic, Wilson attempted to have the franchise fire both head coach Pete Carroll and general manager John Schneider a month earlier. According to the report, the relationship between the quarterback and his former coach deteriorated to the point that they did not speak before the 2022 Week 1 game between the Seattle Seahawks and Wilson's Broncos. Wilson, per the report, felt that Carroll and Snyder were holding Seattle back from winning a second Super Bowl and him from personal awards and accolades. Last February, Wilson asked ownership to fire the coach and general manager, league sources told The Athletic. Wilson's preferred replacement for Carroll was Sean Payton, who is now his new head coach with the Broncos after Nathaniel Hackett was fired in his first season leading the team last fall. And an attorney for Wilson denied the report to The Athletic, calling it entirely fabricated morning. Wilson also denied the report directly via Twitter, writing, quote, "I love Pete, and he was a father figure to me, and John believed in me and drafted me as well. I never wanted them fired. All any of us wanted was to win. I always have respect for them and love for Seattle." Well, I'm going to put this in perspective for you right now. I don't think Seattle had a lot of love for him when he got booed that night because no one's buying it. Give this crap that Russell Wilson's saying. Hell, I'm not even buying it. If you want my honest opinion about Russell Wilson in a nutshell, he's the NFL's newest villain, in my opinion. This is a guy who's pulling a LeBron James. The fact that you're not even talking to this guy for 7 months, which is normal if you're going to move away to a different town, different city. But to have a falling out at this point and not clear the air and not like having closure at the end of all this, because let's be honest, that Monday Night Football game back in September of last year was not really closure. It wasn't. It was Nathaniel Hackett screwing over Russell Wilson and screwing over the Broncos' entire season in a nutshell. That's what it was. The preferred head coach was Sean Payton, and coincidentally, now he's head coaching the Denver Broncos. Gee, that's a coincidence, right? That's almost impossible now at this point. Here's my opinion. Russell Wilson is the newest villain in the NFL. To have Pete Carroll fired to me just doesn't make any sense. So you have one bad season, one bad losing season with the Seattle Seahawks. By the way, you never had a losing season once in the 10 years you've been part of that organization. And the one time you have a losing season going 7-10, you want your coach to get fired? You want your GM to get fired? Both guys to get fired. Okay, that makes perfect sense. You had playoff opportunity to make something happen for your team. Both times you failed. Hell, you never made it back to the NFC title game, right? In your career, after you lost the Super Bowl to the Patriots 28-24 and that 10-point comeback the Patriots had, when you, instead of handing it off to Marshawn Lynch, which is what really was the downfall of this whole team losing confidence in Russell Wilson to begin with. Just the fact that right there, and look, John Schneider will say that they should have ran the ball. That was all on Pete Carroll. Russell Wilson is the one that threw the ball. And in fact, if anything, if Russell Wilson really wanted to be the hero here, if he was, instead of trying to force it, I don't know, quarterback sneak it. If you don't believe in Marshawn, let's get in the end zone. And by the way, he was almost going to be almost a walk-in at the time. So that's what scared the crap out of me. The fact that New England got the tackle there at the one at the end was shocking enough. But this is a team that won this before this, won a Super Bowl by 35 points by beating Peyton Manning, but then the next year losing to Tom Brady, to one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. A coach that now, who's now not going to be coach anymore, not going to be around anymore, and not going to be coached by Sean Payton. Instead, Sean Payton took the quarterback who lost to Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. That's who you took if you're Sean Payton. Now, I know what people are thinking at this point. You know, how does it make Russell Wilson a villain at this point? What has this got to do with anything? Well, here's the thing. Every player hates him now. Urban didn't like him. Richard Sherman didn't like him. Marshawn Lynch has fallen out with him. It got to a point where Doug Baldwin had to retire because he couldn't be around him anymore because he was getting so much backlash at this point and basically telling everybody that it's not his fault, that he's just too perfect. You know, when you're 1-1 in the Super Bowl, you're not perfect. No one's perfect in these scenarios. But the fact of the matter is that they forced Doug Baldwin into retirement, one of the best wide receivers they had. and an underrated wide receiver at best as far as elite wide receivers go. Underrated, in my opinion. If it really wasn't for his ball skills and Percy Harvin, who let's be honest, between that defense and Percy Harvin and Doug Baldwin that season, if that defense never existed and you didn't have those two wide receivers, I don't see how Russell Wilson would have made the playoffs that year. Let's say you would have had Sean Payton as a head coach at this point. Would they have had the stock they had right now in their offensive schemes at this point? Would Russell Wilson be the guy? I don't know. Because here in his first year, by leaving Pete Carroll and his wisdom, he goes 5-12 as a starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos. 5-12. That's pathetic, in my opinion. Absolutely pathetic that actually played out the way that it did. Hell, Bobby Wagner never liked Russell Wilson in the end there. He got ticked off by him too. All his shenanigans. Cam Chancellor, after that Super Bowl loss they had, I think he retired the next year. Pretty sure retired the next year. He ruined a perfect dynasty, Russell Wilson, by his stupidity. That's what he did. He could have changed the play in the line if it was really Pete Carroll's call. I don't think it was. You want my honest opinion? Russell Wilson wanted to make it all about himself. He thought he was the face of the franchise on that team. When deep in reality, he really wasn't. He was never really the face of the franchise. That Legion of Boom was more talked about than Russell Wilson in his time in Seattle. That's it. This is where the story continues. So this is where I lived here. So Wilson and the Seahawks' peak came at the end of the 2013 season when they defeated the Peyton Manning-led Broncos 43-8, win at Super Bowl 40. I believe this is 48. And I was right. It was 48. They returned the following year, losing in a heartbreaker Super Bowl 49 to the Patriots 28-24. Seattle would return to the playoffs 5 more times in the next 7 seasons under Wilson under center, but never made it out of the divisional round. Last March, he was traded to Denver along with a 4th-round pick for a giant package featuring a pair of 1st-round and 2nd-round picks, a 5th-round pick, quarterback Drew Lock, tight end Noah Fant, and defensive lineman Shelby Harris. A move reportedly that put in motion just days after his trade request. The 2022 Broncos, who entered the season with significant fanfare, went just 5-12, like I said, with Wilson leading one of the NFL's most stagnant offenses. The Seahawks, meanwhile, were one of the NFL's biggest surprises of the year, going 9-8 and reaching the playoffs. Geno Smith, Wilson's backup in Seattle, put up stronger numbers than his former teammate across the board, making his first Pro Bowl at 32 years old and winning NFL's Comeback Player of the Year award. That was a no-brainer that he won that award, by the way. Absolute no-brainer. So that's where the story comes to an end. Or actually, yeah, that's where the story comes to an end pretty much. So Russell Wilson, in my opinion, is the NFL newest villain. He can deny all he wants at this point. To have your GM fired as well, to request that firing, to me, is so ridiculous. The guy who saw something in you and took you in the 2nd round, and you want him fired? See, Jimmy Garoppolo was turning into the villain of in the NFL when he was basically quitting on the 49ers every time they lost a playoff game. But the difference was that he never wanted his GM fired. He never wanted his coach to be fired. He said his play calling sucked, but he'd rather have him around because he actually is a pretty good head coach. I don't know why Russell Wilson doesn't like Pete Carroll. I don't get the logic behind that. To me, that to me screams out that Russell Wilson is entitled. That Super Bowl win got to his head. He made it all about himself. He thought he outplayed Peyton Manning that night in the Super Bowl. And the reality of it is that you got an entitled quarterback who thought was the face of the franchise for the next 5 or 7 years. And it turns out that wasn't the case at all. And then 3 years went down the road and he became the face. I don't know who that was. I just thought somebody was coming to my driveway. Anyway. So Russ wasn't thought he was the face of the franchise for the last decade, and it turns out he wasn't. And look, in reality, the reality of it is this: is that we all thought the guy was humble and his losses. He was humbled in some cases. But to me, I look at this. I look at a guy like this, and I say to myself, you know what? It was all for show. It was all for show because behind the scenes, he's nothing but a jerk. That's it. He can put on the facade all he wants. He bought his mama a house out in Colorado. He did all these nice things for the family. He does nice things, and you notice he puts it on camera. He knows he puts the stuff on camera. He knows he needs the spotlight to be on him, needs all the attention to be on him, makes it all about him. I'm going to tell you this right now. If he did this to Pete Carroll, he's going to do the exact same thing to Sean Payton. So it won't be long until Sean Payton screws up or something like that, and Wilson calls, or in this case, Wilson screws up on something and doesn't take the fault for it, and gets Sean Payton to get fired as well, and possibly screws over Peyton Manning too. One of the minority owners, by the way, the Denver Broncos. Just FYI. So that could happen too. Pair of NFL releases this week, mostly on the Titans side of the ball. Robert Woods, wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans, done after one season. After 9 years, left tackle Taylor Lawn, he's been released. I want to believe it was somebody else that was released at this point. And a kicker, Randy Bullock, was also released this week by the Tennessee Titans. And he's been there for at least 13, 14 years, I believe. So he was released this week. And I don't know if the Titans are just going to try to rebuild at this point and get another quarterback for next year or what they're thinking here. But, I mean, that's a lot of pieces to get rid of. I get Bullock. I get getting rid of getting rid of the kicker. But your best offensive lineman, who has been a great protection for Ryan Tannehill and a great run blocker for Derrick Henry to go behind and run past, creating big holes, big gaps, big alleys for Derrick Henry to run over people. So I think that hurts their offensive line in the worst way possible. The kicker, look, they needed a new kicker now for a while. That's a given right there. Robert Woods wasn't really that great in the offense anyway. In fact, he really didn't play that much. So, I mean, what use was he to that team? You know what the biggest surprise was this week? Bobby Wagner was released this week by the LA Rams after one season. And he was a key guy to carry that defense around most of the season because he played more games than Aaron Donald, the face of their team. Top interested teams right now that may really want to consider getting him. I'll give you the list right now. Cincinnati Bengals, Philadelphia Eagles, New York Giants. I believe I don't really have the whole list in front of me right now. I know it's the Giants. The fourth team I want to say was I really don't have the list in front of me. I thought I was on this list coming up on my list. I guess not. Do I have the list in front of me? Oh, here we go. So here's the rest of the teams. So it's Bengals, Eagles, Giants, Lions, and Steelers. Of the top 5 teams, according to CBS Sports, CBS Sports own Brian Diedro. And this, I say this, I think this is interesting here. Because Wagner had a 5-year, I want to say it was a $105 million contract. And you release him after 1 year. You're not bringing back Jalen Ramsey. And you're really down to Aaron Donald on defense. Honestly, you want to know where I think Bobby Wagner ends up going? And I'm just being realistic here because I really didn't expect Wagner to be a free agent at all this year. Wagner, I think, will end up going to the Giants. It makes the defense a lot better. They're a lot more stronger with Bobby Wagner on the hold right now. He could be a good leader to that defense. They're a young, hungry defense. Brian Daboll's a good head coach. I think if he comes there realistically and you get somebody else at quarterback in the draft, maybe something like a Will Levis maybe in the draft because you're going to get rid of Daniel Jones anyway because he's not worth $45 million. He's not. Look, he had a miracle year, but it doesn't make me believe that the Giants should keep him. Draft Will Levis out of Kentucky. You got a decent offensive line. I say pretty good offensive line. I shouldn't say decent, but pretty good offensive line. You got some good targets for him to throw to, and you got a good defense that's built around Bobby Wagner at this point, and your team is defense heavy. That's the one key guy that can make a difference for that team. And you already got now. I can't think of his name now off the top of my head, but yeah, the Oregon kid, who I can't think of his. Why am I trying to blank on this kid's name? I don't know. Now I have to look at the Giants roster now. This is great. This is great. I really didn't want to look at these. Why am I even trying to blank on this guy's name? Oh, Thibodeau. Yeah, Kayvon Thibodeau. So you have him now on the roster as well. And Wagner, that's a good 1-2 combo punch. A veteran with a second-year guy out of Oregon, it makes sense here. You got McKinley in there. You got Williams in there. That defense is going to be hungry. Watch. That's going to be a scary team to watch in 2023 with that defense. You put Wagner on that team, it makes a huge difference. As far as left tackles go, for Taylor Long, where I think he ends up going, because I think he's done with Tennessee. I think he really is. You put him with the Rams. I mean, they desperately need a left tackle. They need a whole new offensive line. And left tackle is where you start. I think realistically, left tackle is where you start. At this point, there's going to be a lot of offensive linemen that are going to be free agents anyway. We already know this now because it's right in front of us, this free agency period. It's coming up in about a couple weeks or so. So expect a lot of key guys to get moved around. But Taylor Long is the number one key guy on this thing. Honestly, Randy Bullock should just consider retiring because he's been in the league for so long. And I would say for Robert Woods, the one wide receiver who I think realistically would be a really good place for him to go. Don't go back to the LA Rams because that makes you look bad. Go with the Giants. Go with the Giants. You're gonna see how much of a key piece you really are. You're like the understudy in this whole thing. You got Robert Woods in there. You got Isaiah Hodgins. You got Sterling Shepard. You got a great list of wide receivers I just named. I'm drawing a blank on most of these names, but Robert Woods would be a good key guy in New York. He'd be good for Will Levis at this point. And if you want Saquon Barkley, I'm going to say this right now at this point. I thought about this just now. I thought to my head, like, who are they going to get at running back? Because McCaffrey ain't going to come to New York. McCaffrey's going to be a California kid. He's going to stay out in California. So, really, you're probably going to end up getting Saquon Barkley to re-sign back with the Giants. Will Levis to be your quarterback. You already have a great offensive line. You have a great defense. I think if this happens, the Giants are more likely ahead of the Washington Commanders and ahead of the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC East. Because I think Philadelphia is still going to be a deadlock to win the East. I think of what they have right now as far as players go and as far as what they get in free agency, like at this point, I can see most of these guys coming back in free agency. I can't see most of their offensive line leaving. Kelsey, I can see retiring because he's burnt out. He had his dream playing against his brother. I mean, unfortunately, he didn't win, but to be there, to have his mom watch, I mean, it was great. It was a great Super Bowl moment. It was awesome. But I think Jason Kelsey's on his way out. I really do. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if David Andrews ends up getting traded to Philadelphia. And that's a center for the New England Patriots. I'm just saying. If anyone out there who doesn't know who that is, it's obviously going to be because to me, I can't see the Patriots at this point sticking with Mac. I can't. But there's a lot of centers that are going to be free agents this year as well. So you're going to have some. They're going to have plenty of good time to figure that whole thing out. And look, I know David Andrews is kind of like the whole machine that runs that offensive line, but he's got no voice there anymore in New England. Let's be realistic here. He really doesn't. I just think now at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if he was traded because Kelsey's on his way out anyway. So you get one new voice there, much younger version. I mean, David Andrews is not that younger than Kelsey, I don't believe. But it's a different energy. It's a different feel. It's an interesting story. And this is a guy who's been around so many Super Bowls that can help out Jalen Hurts. So it kind of makes sense for him to go there. It does. It really does. Let's see. Is there any more NFL news I need to know about right now at this point other than Lamar Jackson may be on his way out the door. Apparently, he has lost the team. Why Jackson's ideal deal might not be guaranteed because realistically, they don't think he's worth the time. All the concern right now goes to the health of the guy. Stephen A. Smith said today right now that despite that they should give him a deal anyway. I look at it like this. Lamar Jackson has not earned a deal, in my opinion. He hasn't. He had one great year, one good year, and the rest of the years were injury prone. So I don't get how a guy who has 2 out of 4 or 5 years in the league means that he deserves a really big contract. I mean, did he get the Ravens to the playoffs last year? No, he sat out instead, and they missed the playoffs. This year, Tyler Huntley luckily got this team into the playoffs. They were one and done. So it really doesn't matter what Lamar Jackson's going to do. I already said it now about Lamar Jackson. It could be possible that he could go to the Washington Commanders and make a difference there and maybe get a good deal there. It ain't going to happen in Baltimore. You've lost the crowd there at that point. If you want my honest opinion about the Ravens, what they should really do, what they should really consider at this point before it's too late, think about drafting Max Duggan as your quarterback. It's your only hope at this point. I know the kid's good, decent, but you got to replace Lamar Jackson. If you're not seriously considering taking him at this point, draft Max Duggan. I can see Max Duggan going to the Ravens during this NFL draft. I can see Levis going to the Giants. I can see Duggan going to the Ravens. That's my take. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that really don't see these moves happening, but I can see it realistically because Daniel Jones is going to end up going to the Carolina Panthers anyway and being the Panthers quarterback. I already said it on the podcast on Tuesday, or it might have been Sunday. I have no idea. There's a mock, before I get into mock draft talk here, we'll talk about the Aaron Rodgers Darkness Retreat. I thought it was 2 weeks. It turns out his retreat didn't happen right away. It happened, it only lasted about 2 days. It was supposed to be like a 4-day retreat. The Packers don't care, though. There was a report that went out today saying that they are done with Aaron Rodgers and they want to start Jordan Love. And Aaron Rodgers apparently is deciding to either stick around for a little while longer in Green Bay. Not officially deciding yet that he's going to retire, but he's going to stick around. And the Packers are not happy about this retreat thing. They weren't happy about him being gone and doing this darkness retreat. In fact, it was actually pissing off the Packers organization, which in terms it should, because in this case here, if you're an organization and you're waiting on a guy who really, let's be honest, has always found a way to let you down, choke, whatever the case may be, he's done it. And in various ways. When you're a man who really just did this in public and didn't even speak about this to the team saying, hey, let me have time to think about this, I'll let you know. This is getting to the point now this is stupid. Deep down, Aaron Rodgers wants to go to Las Vegas, go to the Las Vegas Raiders and play with Devontae Adams. He just doesn't have the balls to admit it. He wants to take as much money from the Green Bay Packers as possible, despite them, and leave. That's the plan. It's only a matter of time for when it happens. It's going to happen during free agency. That's pretty obvious. It's going to happen in March. It's going to be a big-time news story. It's going to go on for a week. This guy's going to Las Vegas. He's already Las Vegas bound. That doesn't mean this team's going to make the playoffs, though. I'm just going to put that in perspective right now. It ain't going to matter. This team will not make the playoffs in 2023 above the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. I call it like I see it. I mean, they may get lucky and get in as a wild card team, but even if they do, they're going to be one and done. Cincinnati's a powerhouse. Buffalo's a powerhouse. Kansas City's just too much for them anyway. You can put Aaron Rodgers in there. You can put Jimmy Garoppolo in there. You can put Tom Brady in there, a guy who doesn't even want to play in Las Vegas anymore. The reality of it is is that it don't matter. Kansas City's just too good. They're too good. Mahomes already took the torch from Tom Brady. He's beaten them in New England. He's beaten them in Tampa Bay. Twice now in Tampa Bay. So what are we doing here, folks? Let's be realistic here. This darkness retreat thing, all this was to further up the point here, where Aaron Rodgers just doesn't want to admit that he doesn't want to be in Green Bay anymore. He doesn't want to hurt Green Bay's feelings. At this point, they're sick of it. They already dealt with it with Brett Favre. Do you understand that part of it? They don't want to do it again. Just say you want to go to Las Vegas and move on. Just say you want to be a Las Vegas Raider. Say you miss Devontae Adams. Say that you got jealous about the idea of Devontae Adams and Derek Carr being a thing. Speaking of Derek Carr at this point, a lot of people were saying the best fit for him is the Jets. That's what I've been hearing all week long. The Jets, the Falcons, let's see, even the Patriots at this point. My prediction here is I think he ends up going to the Houston Texans. I don't know what it is. I don't think Bryce Young's a realistic pick here, in my opinion. I don't think he'll end up going there. I don't. I thought Indianapolis, but then I thought to myself, you know what? Indianapolis has got a sucky offensive line. It's worse than Las Vegas' offensive line. Now, the coaching's going to be good. It'll be interesting. But it ain't going to happen for him. Derek Carr's not the right guy. He's not that good. He's had 2 overrated seasons, in my opinion, in the NFL. And the reality of it is I think he ends up being a New York Jet. Because realistically, that's his best shot to even make a statement in the NFL at this point. Not with a beat-up offensive line and a new head coach with your old scheme and tricks where you're not going to really do anything that listen to the coach anyway. Here, you can manipulate this freaking goofball because he's a dope. And realistically, and I'm just being honest about the Jets this year, Zach Wilson will be the biggest distraction and it'll be the biggest flop in New York Jet history because of the fact right now that you got a head coach that nobody cares about anymore. He's gonna be on the hot seat anyway, whether he has Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo or not. He's gonna be on the hot seat no matter how you look at it. Because he hasn't proven anything. He's had 2 losing seasons. So you have that in consideration. You have all these things that come out in play here. Derek Carr is going to be a New York Jet right now. Zach Wilson will be the biggest distraction. And it's going to be like the Tebow, Mark Sanchez fiasco all over again. That's what this season's going to be in 2023 for the Jets. I can already tell you right now it's going to happen. One way or the other. Now, there was a mock free agency draft at this point. I'm actually going to go with the top 10 here of all the current free agents at this point. That I just lost myself on the screen just now. I don't know if this is the top 30. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go with the top 20, and this is according to the CBS Sports page of who they think is going to go to places. Start with number 32, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Say apparently now they're not going to try to get Jamal Dean back, but instead of getting Jamal Dean, they'll get Patrick Peterson, the Minnesota Viking 1-year deal that came to a close. He's now a free agent. They're assuming now, contending post Tom Brady, they're going to be sticking with Kyle Trask. According to Bruce Arians, Kyle Trask is the future of that team. But Patrick Peterson, according to CBS Sports, will be going to Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If you want me to ask the prediction here about Patrick Peterson, where I think he ends up going, it's because Tampa Bay would be a mistake. And I'm being serious about this. I think Patrick Peterson, to really stick it, and I mean stick it to the Cardinals, is going to the LA Rams. They're not going to get back Jalen Ramsey anyway. So why as well get Patrick Peterson out of it? Patrick Peterson, who can still go, in my opinion, who can still cover people. He's not that bad defensively. He's not the sole reason why they were 31st in passing defense. He was the only good defensive back they had that was good. They didn't have any real defensive backs in that team. They didn't have Mike Hilton there, who used to be a Viking, I believe. Now with the Bengals, they could have gotten him during the offseason, but they didn't. They didn't have a 1-2 combo punch. In fact, if you want my honest opinion, Patrick Peterson at this point and Marshawn Lattimore should become a thing in LA. That's a 1-2 combo punch right there. If he makes his way out of New Orleans, if you ask for a trade and gets traded to LA, that'd be a perfect trade right there in heaven. But apparently the CBS Sports, they don't believe so because they believe that the Buccaneers will get Patrick Peterson in free agency. Yannick Ngakoue, number 31, is going to New Orleans Saints, the Indianapolis Colts defensive end, who's now going to be I believe I believe that will be team up with Marcus Davenport and Caden Ellis, both slated for free agents. Or actually, they won't be teaming up because they'll be both slated for free agency. The Saints will probably need at least one veteran addition off the edge. Ngakoue has never rounded into a form as a run defender, but his pass rush acumen is undeniable, making him a potential plug-and-play Pro Bowl talent for Dennis Allen's unit. Dennis Allen, who I think realistically is a crappy head coach, so just the fact they even said Dennis Allen's unit when it was a self-made Sean Payton production. That's what that Saints defense was. The Vikings are going to possibly sign safety Jesse Bates. What am I asking about the safety at this point, position at this point? If Cincinnati don't want to get him, I think the Vikings get him. Why not? It makes the Vikings less terrible defensively, and you put yourself with Harrison Smith. So it makes that defense look a lot better. And let's put it this way. The Vikings might actually still have a shot of clinching the NFC North next year. Or it could be Detroit. Who knows? But I don't see Detroit clinching the division. It's going to be the Vikings next season. Dalvin Thompson. I don't believe I don't even know if I made a prediction on him at all. I think I said Philadelphia for him or Chicago. I think Chicago. I think I said the Chicago Bears would be a good place for him because they need help defensively bad. The Jaguars maybe, but I don't know. I don't see it. I actually believe I actually said the Bears. Not even saying out loud. I think I did. 28 Chargers would be getting Paris Campbell. Mm-hmm. Of course, this is a mock draft, by the way, for free agency. This is not an NFL draft. This guy, I believe this would be his 4th year in the NFL. Surprisingly, already a free agent out of Ohio State. One key thing here for me is I'm all about reuniting people. I think Paris Campbell should be reunited with his buddy C.J. Stroud. The problem is I don't know if Stroud will end up going to the Colts or the Cowboys for that, because I feel like the Cowboys are just going to give up Dak Prescott at this point to Indianapolis. And I already said this in the get-go. I think C.J. Stroud goes to the Dallas Cowboys. I think it'd be a perfect move. Paris Campbell is going to go to the Dallas Cowboys. They need more help at wide receiver. I don't think the Chargers need any more wide receiver help. They don't really need it. It's not realistic. Anyway, Bills get running back Josh Jacobs. I say Josh Jacobs is a Dolphin. I don't think Buffalo is a good choice for him at all. Personally, the depth at running back at this point is top notch. Nyheim Hines and Singletary to me. I think that's the way you go with it at this point. Singletary is actually pretty good. I don't see what the hate is there at this point. I mean, they could draft the running back if they really wanted to. Buffalo. I don't think getting Josh Jacobs would make. I guess it would make sense for a running back need because they do need a running back, I guess, because they don't have a number one back on their team. But I don't know. Josh Jacobs to me, I don't see it. I see him going to Miami more. Speaking of Miami Dolphins, the 26th pick, according to them, is Jimmy Garoppolo. Now that could work. That could realistically work. Jimmy Garoppolo going to the Miami Dolphins, I think that could work. But I'm still leaning towards New England. I'm still leaning towards a trade that makes somewhat sense in this whole thing, right? Like a trade that maybe Mac Jones goes to San Francisco, in exchange for Tua going to, or I guess in this case, Tua would be going to Tua would stay in Miami, I guess in this case. Or actually, no, Tua would be losing his job, so Tua would have to go somewhere else. Tua would have to go. God, where would Tua go? That's a really good question. Where would Tua go? I don't know. But Garoppolo going to New England is more realistic than anything else. I see a Bill Belichick, Jimmy Garoppolo reunion in 2023. 25, offensive guard, I should say, Dalton Risner. Dalton Risner, who was with the Denver offensive line. He helped shore up the interior after a solid run in Denver, hopefully allowing Matthew Stafford to regain confidence under center. Dalton Risner, I could say, for an interior running plays or interior pass screen plays, it is good to have protection. He's a good blocker. He's good out in blocking outfield for screen plays. I think it makes sense for him to go to LA. So take him. Safety Jordan Poyer, who's now going to be a free agent now for Buffalo, is projected to go to the Cleveland Browns. I think the Browns take him. They need help safety-wise. They don't really have a big threat safety in the outfield there. You could use him and Grant Delpit. I think that's a good combination right there, and it makes Cleveland a scary team. They're already going to be a scary team next year with a fully healthy, fully focused Deshaun Watson. They're going to be dangerous in 2023. This player right here makes them dangerous. I say take him. 23, Levante David, projected to go to the Carolina Panthers in free agency. I say he is going to be a Carolina Panther. I don't see how he's not. You're going to team up with Kevin Burns at this point and make a huge impact defensively. I think with that system right now, it works. They're going to have Daniel Jones at quarterback anyway. So make it interesting at this point. And I can't wait to see Daniel Jones head back to New York to face Will Levis, the guy who took his job. That's going to be your story right there. I don't know the Panthers and Giants will be a matchup at this point. I have to look back on that again. But yeah, that should be good. Saquon Barkley's going to go to the Cowboys according to the 22 pick. I say that's not going to happen. I say at this point, he stays with the Giants. You get Will Levis in there. Like I said, you get Robert Woods in there. It makes a difference. It does. If anything, Dallas needs to keep Tony Pollard in a new deal. I mean, I said the Giants, but then I changed my mind because I think to myself, no, Tony Pollard needs to stick around. He's the whole key to that offense. I don't think an injury should be the reason that you get the franchise tag and they decide to tag him. So I think realistically, if they get Saquon Barkley in a deal, it'd be a hell of a deal. But I don't see it. If anything, I would rather see Leonard Fournette go to the Dallas Cowboys at this point. Get rid of the contract you have him on now at this point anyway in Tampa Bay. Send him down to Dallas. 21 NFL free agency mock draft. Mike Gillespie, the former tight end for the Miami Dolphins. I didn't even realize he was a free agent. The Green Bay Packers needed a tight end to go, head to head with Robert Tonyan here as the number one tight end to me is the story now for the Packers. I think it'd be an interesting story. But the question is, who does he catch balls from? Aaron Rodgers or Jordan Love? That's to remain to be seen right there. That's going to be interesting to see what happens there. These are going to get Odell Beckham Jr. I don't think they are. I don't think they're going to get Odell Beckham Jr. In fact, Odell Beckham Jr., realistically, in my opinion, in my prediction, I think goes, believe it or not, to the I think I just said it. I had a thought before in my head of where we'd end up going. Giants is not going to happen. I'd say he goes to Philadelphia. Make it interesting at this point. Facing your former team twice a season. You got A.J. Brown in there already. I think the team would be a lot better with him. They need a little bit more depth anyway. Devontae Smith, Odell Beckham Jr., and A.J. Brown. I mean, that's a dangerous combination right there. And that's a Super Bowl dangerous combination right there. I think that Philadelphia Eagle team goes back to that Super Bowl with that combination. I don't see how they don't. Plus the Chiefs at this point, you put Odell there, it's too easy. But we'll see, because a lot of people are saying right now that Kansas City is really highly interested in getting him. So let's see what happens. Quarterback Geno Smith going back to the New York Jets, according to NFL mock draft. I didn't expect that one. I did not read this list at all. The Jets taking back the quarterback at this point. And here's my question. Just throw this out there. Does that mean Derek Carr goes to Seattle? If that happens? I'm just curious. Does he stay out west at this point, but then go to Seattle instead? With Pete Carroll and John Snyder? The Angels of the world? Well, that'd be a good way that'd be really a good way for them to stick it. Derek Carr just goes into Seattle and wins the division. Geno Smith gets into the playoffs, Derek Carr wins their division. There you go. 2 years in a row sticking it to Russell Wilson. That would be a hell of a way to do it. I hope it kind of happens actually now. But no, I don't think Geno Smith goes to the New York Jets. As much as I believe in that story, I predict he ends up going to the I did say the Commanders at one point, but then I thought about it. I said to myself, oh, he's not going to be a backer for Lamar Jackson. So if Lamar Jackson goes to Washington, I think Tampa Bay takes Geno Smith. I don't think Kyle Trask is the future. Sorry. I think Geno Smith's more of a future story right now in Tampa Bay. You got Mike Evans there. You got Chris Godwin there. You got Kate Oden there. You got a good offensive line next season. Ryan Jensen is not expected to be a free agent. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't see why not. Andrew Wiley, the offensive tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs, expected to be a free agent. I think he ends up, in my prediction, will go to the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm sorry, not Kansas City. Well, I think either Kansas City resigns him. They're saying the Pittsburgh Steelers might take him. I don't think they could. But I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could because they need an offensive line help. I think they could use him at left tackle. You put Tristan Wirfs at right tackle. You get rid of Donovan Smith. And I think a change of position would be interesting for that kid to learn because he's already conquered right guard, right tackle. Can he be left guard, left tackle, or does he have to make Tristan Wirfs move? In fact, realistically, if Tristan Wirfs were to swap places, I think it'd be a better idea anyway. He's starting to slack off on that right side anyway. 49ers get offensive guard Isaac Simulo. I think that would be a big move here. I think they're going to lose Mike McGinley anyway. So I think he'll end up going to leave the 49ers. Anyway, this guy will be his replacement. It makes a lot of sense here. He was good in Philadelphia. He was a key guy in that offense, in the offensive runs that Jalen Hurts had. He was a big force up the middle, big force on the left side, big force on the right side. He was a guy that made things happen. So I think it'd be a huge loss for Philly, but San Francisco picking them up, smart move. Derek Carr going to the Washington Commanders. That's not happening. That's not happening. Derek Carr is going to go to the New York Jets and make a spectacle of himself in New York. Or he'll go to Seattle and spite Russell Wilson. I actually want that to happen more than anything else. I really do. 15, Brian Murphy Jr. could be replacing James Bradbury. I say, why not? James Bradbury's not that great anyway. He's an overrated defensive back. Brian Murphy Jr. at least is good. He's a good guy, 25 years old. He's more of a gambler at defensive back. He's a good gambler to cash in on. I think Philadelphia should do it. I think they're going to. Tremaine Edmonds, former linebacker for the Buffalo Bills. I think he takes the place for Denver. And I also think this as well. I thought to myself, Wagner would be a good replacement in Denver along with Edmonds, but I thought, nah, Wagner should go to Buffalo, should go to New York instead. Not the Bills, to the Giants, of course. But yeah, Edmonds is going to go to Denver. Dalton Schultz, next up will be Indianapolis, according to this mock draft. I think that's a good idea. He's a good blocking tight end, and if you want to be a good receiving tight end, he's that too. They need that at this point. Dak Prescott needs to be reunited with somebody that he knows anyway, because we already know he's an outer in Dallas anyway, in my eyes. So he's going to be out the door. He's going to be out the door. Juwan Taylor going to take a place for left tackle Taylor Lawland in Tennessee. According to this, I say it happens. If Taylor Law is not going to come back here, Taylor's going to take his spot. I don't see how he doesn't. Cameron Sutton, the defensive back for the Pittsburgh Steelers, now going to be going to the Lions possibly. I say that's not a realistic move. It could be, but I think James Bradbury's next step's going to be there in Detroit. And we already know Detroit loves taking the worst defensive backs, which Sutton's no better anyway. But I think James Bradbury, either way you look at it, goes there. The Cardinals get Jamal Dean, apparently, in free agency. I think that's a mistake. Jamal Dean should end up going to a place where he belongs. And I think he belongs. And I have to say this with full confidence. He belongs in the New York Giants. How does Jamal Dean not fit that defensive system? They need a defensive back anyway. You help out with McKinley. McKinley's another defensive back that could be really good for him. He could be nurtured by a veteran defensive presence of both Wagner and Dean. Both guys who have won the Super Bowl. Both guys who have been at their best of their game and still are. In my opinion, Jamal Dean, he goes to the New York Giants. Tampa Bay's all done. But Geno Smith going to Tampa Bay is a realistic thing. Jamal Dean leaving Tampa Bay, that's realistic too. Ravens will get Juju Smith-Schuster according to this mock draft. I think that's a nice pick. I mean, if that's the thing that keeps Lamar Jackson out of Baltimore at this point, it's stupid on his part. But you get Max Duggan in the draft, and you get this guy a really good wide receiver, and maybe get DeAndre Hopkins on top of that in free agency as well in a low contract deal. You get these two guys. You get Schuster, because I think Smith-Schuster deserves a longer deal than Hopkins does. I'm sorry, he does. This guy proved it in the playoffs that he was a difference maker on that team. Had a great fourth quarter. So I think he belongs there. He belongs in that conversation. Defensive line, Jermaine Mont Jones, another defensive presence for Denver, going to go to Seattle. This seems to be a common theme right now with Denver and Seattle. They like giving each other their players. This all dates back to 2014, and it's continuing now. I keep the momentum going. Keeps giving Seattle all the defensive power because that's what you're doing. So go ahead. Caleb McGarry, offensive tackle at this point, the former offensive tackle for the Atlanta Falcons, not going to go to the Patriots. I kind of think McKinley at this point is more of a great choice than Caleb McGarry is, because they're saying he's a comparison to Mike McGinley. I don't see how he is. He's kind of smaller. I don't think he's kind of that much of a difference maker. He's a good teacher for Cole Strange. I'll give you that one. But as far as talent-wise goes, McGinley's better. And I think Mac Jones needs a McGinley kind of protector than a guy who was good at best with a malfunctioning Falcon offense. And speaking of Mike McGinley now going to be going into Cincinnati Bengals. That's a tough one. Either Cincinnati or New England. Who's your pick there? That's a toss-up to me. I'm going to keep that one a toss-up. Marcus Davenport going to go to the Houston Texans after spending 5 years of his career in New Orleans. He's now going to go to the Houston Texans. Look, if that's the place he ends up going at this point and take J.J. Watt's place, which realistically that's what he's doing right now because they haven't found a defensive end like J.J. Watt in like 6 years. So, or a light comparison to him. They didn't find in the draft, and they think they can find here in free agency. I say cash in and take him. You need something at this point to make your team relevant at this point, because knowing now you're not going to get the quarterback that you want, unless someone Dak Prescott becomes a Houston Texan. If that happens, who knows? Sky's the limit, but who knows? Jacoby Myers is going to go to the New York Giants, according to this mock draft report. I kind of look at it like this. If you get Robert Woods and you get Isaiah Hodgins and you get Sterling Shepard here, Myers is a good number one comp. Woods is a good number 2. Shepard's a good number 3. Hodgins is a good number 4. That team's going to be good. That team's going to be really good if they have him around. I say take him. That's a guy that you can cash in on. You can take it later on. That's a good move. That's a really good move in my opinion. Number 3, James Bradbury to the Raiders. I said Detroit. Detroit's a more comp of a pick at this point. I think Bradbury's getting better, I think. A little bit overrated at this point as he's elite, but he's getting better. And these moves. Defensive line, Zach Allen. I'd say a good comp for Grady Jarrett. I say go for it. Cash in. You want Grady Jarrett to have some kind of weapon here? That's the guy you take at this point. And Javon Hargrave, who I think I said he was going to go to Chicago anyway. So Thompson and Hargrave go to Chicago. That's it. Chicago is going to keep is going to get Bryce Young anyway in the draft. I think Justin Fields gets traded. And honestly, I'll give you a team right now. Excuse me. Wow. The one team that can really take him at this point, that can really make the headlines here in Chicago, just for the hell of it. And I know what people are going to think. They're going to think like, wow, they really don't like Justin Fields in Chicago. And you know something? You ain't wrong. You ain't wrong for thinking it. But Justin Fields, and let me just say this for a minute right now at this point. I think this happens. I think it does. I think Bryce Young gets drafted, and I think Justin Fields is out the door. I think Justin Fields, in my honest opinion, and I'm just being totally realistic here about this idea, because Mac Jones going to Las Vegas ain't going to happen. But Justin Fields to the Las Vegas Raiders will happen for 2 reasons. One, you got great wide receivers. You got a great tight end. You have a much better offensive line with Josh McDaniels running the realm. Despite that team being bad, you still have Devontae Adams. But you got Aaron Rodgers going to town as well with a big, massive contract for the next 2 years. You sit down, you watch from Aaron Rodgers, you play like Aaron, you learn from Aaron Rodgers, or unless if Rodgers actually teaches you anything. But in reality, you take this guy, you sit him down for a couple of years, you get your starting job back, you get your mojo back, and I promise you this kid will be good. He'll be the next big thing in Las Vegas. I'm telling you. Justin Fields to the Las Vegas Raiders, to me, is a realistic move, in my opinion. I don't see how you don't pull the trigger. And let's say let's say Aaron Rodgers goes down an injury, a career-ending injury, and he just lights it up for you, which is what he needs to do anyway, because he was running the ball damn too much. That wasn't helping the team at all in any of their games. Think about it. When you went from 3-5 to 3-14, what the hell was running the ball going to do? They needed to throw the ball. Throw the damn ball. You got an arm. They might not believe it in Chicago, but you do got an arm. So, in my opinion, yes. You bring in Justin Fields. That team is a totally changed regime. It makes a lot of headline news. It gets a lot of people talking. You make it happen. You make the move happen. You do. Anyways, that's all the NFL news that I got today. I think I had more, but realistically, this segment went on as long as I wanted this to be planning to go on long for. But yeah, that is the story. That is all the NFL mock draft picks. But I really was not planning on going 55 minutes with NFL news. Holy crap! Look at the NBA news. And the news about LeBron James accidentally leaking out his retirement plans during the NBA All-Star game. He wants to play with his son, but it's only a matter of time before LeBron James is considering retirement. I think he does retire at the end of this year. What does he got left to prove at this point? He's playing at a high level. I get it. But he's not making the playoffs with the Lakers anytime soon. He's not going to make a difference with any other team later on. It's not going to happen. It's not realistic at this point. Him retiring to play with his son, I mean, I guess he was asked along because apparently the Orlando Magic are projected to get him in the 2024 NBA draft. He was asked, could you consider going to Orlando to play with his son in Orlando? And he said, no, I'll just retire. Because he is not going to play with a Magic team that's going to rebuild. He's going to want to play with a team that's going to make the playoffs, go to the NBA Finals. That's the dream. But if it's about rebuild, LeBron ain't down with it. LeBron's too old for a rebuild at this point. Why the hell would he want to be a rebuild team at this point? Why would he want to rebuild with a crappy Magic team, which realistically, they're crappy? If Bronny goes there, his career's over. So the idea of the Magic going to take him at this point is kind of sad. You know what's also sad this week? Nate McMillan, who was fired this week from the Atlanta Hawks. And the replacement at head coach right now could be Ime Udoka or Quinn Snyder, the guy who was formerly fired from the Utah Jazz. Look how that turned out for the Jazz so far this season, huh? Comes back in full circle. It's kicking them right in the ass that they fired this head coach. Literally for no reason, really. Because what came out of it? You lost Rudy Gobert to the Minnesota Timberwolves. You lost Donovan Mitchell to the Cleveland Cavaliers. And you lost your head coach that got into the big dance in the first place. What are we doing? You know? But Ime Udoka, like I said before, I said it on the podcast, he'd be a key piece to go to Atlanta. And that's exactly what happened. He's a key piece that's going to go to Atlanta. Ime Udoka's got more of a shot right now to take the head coaching job in Atlanta than Quinn Snyder does. I'm sorry. Quinn Snyder, who has no leadership qualities at all, loses a team every chance he gets, and he's in the swirl of bad head coaching. He's not that good of a head coach. I'm sorry. I'm just being realistic here. Just totally being realistic. I actually found this the other day from Michael Jordan when he was with the Washington Wizards back in 2002. 20 years from now, you will never see someone play sick or get out on the floor with a sore ankle. Basically calling the NBA players of the later 2000s soft, which is what this was for Michael Jordan in this quote here. And he was right. He predicted the future, and I was afraid of him being because I always knew he was the guy that would make that kind of prediction anyway. But think about this for a minute. If he was predicting this a long time ago, and I'm just being realistic here, Michael Jordan predicting that just goes to show that the NBA has no Mamba mentality in Kobe Bryant and no passion for the game like Michael Jordan did. That's the difference. They're all game managers at this point. They're all agents to themselves. They're all a product. They're all a brand. That's what they are, a brand. They think they're bigger than Jordan. They think they're bigger than the NBA. They don't need to play every freaking game. They can go over the commissioner's head like nothing and just go tell them to screw and go tell the coaches to screw. Then they're not playing it back to back. That's what the NBA has turned to at this point. It's a soft, cupcake, mushy, PG-13 bullcrap league. That's what this has turned into. It's turned into a video game at this point, where you can mess around with the rosters in one night. If you want to make your team have an overall 50 plus, you take your best starting rotations out and you put your entire bench in there. That's what you're doing. That's what you're doing to the NBA. And it's kind of pathetic if you ask me. The NBA goes along with this load management bullcrap, and it needs to stop. Because if it doesn't, we're going to have an NBA lockout. The CBA is coming up pretty damn soon. So I would not be surprised at all if there was an NBA lockout in 2023. I'm calling it right now. If it happens, it's all on Adam Silver. David Stern knew how to solve the problem with the NBA lockout as a commissioner. This guy doesn't know how to solve a damn thing. He couldn't sell the COVID pandemic. He ain't going to sell the NBA lockout. And especially with a player union like LeBron, I think the only way that this load management comes to an end is if LeBron James actually does retire. Because he's a pioneer for a brand for himself. Look, I'll give you an example. King James. The GOAT. The Brown version 1. It just, I don't even know if that's even really a nickname for him, but that's basically what he is. And the reality of it is, at this point, and it's sad to say, but it's reality. And reality is right now, LeBron James at this point is a pioneer for load management. You want to know who was also a pioneer for it? Kyrie Irving. You want to know who's also a pioneer for it? Kawhi Leonard. And I love Kawhi Leonard. You want to know who's also a pioneer for it? Kevin Durant. This load management needs to stop because it's hurting the NBA ratings. It is. It's not a good thing either. It's kind of sad, actually, if you ask me. Really sad at this point. This is what the NBA load management has come to. It's gotten to this, and think about this, it's gotten to this conclusion for a variety of reasons. Because nobody has the balls to step up to their players because they don't want to confront their union. Because they know they can't get a word in edgewise. They can't get a word in edgewise at this point of what their records are going to be. How it's going to be tough for them to get on the road. Like if they can't get tough for a regular season game, how are they going to get motivated for a playoff game? It's all about those factors. It is. It's suffice to say it, but it is in reality. Anyway, last night the NBA was back on. The NBA regular season was back on last night. Celtics beat the Pacers last night in overtime, 142-138. Raptors beat the Pelicans, 115-110. Dallas Mavericks beat the Spurs, 142-116. The Jazz won in overtime, 120-119. Lakers beat the Warriors, 124-111. Kings beat the Trailblazers, 133-116. No Damian Lillard last night. And Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum in the other game in Indiana last night for the Celtics. They both come out to get 61 points. Magic beat the Pistons 108-106. The Denver Nuggets won in Cleveland 115-109. And the 76ers beat the Grizzlies 110-105. I'm calling like I see it right now. The NBA load management bullcrap needs to come to a stop. It's ridiculous now at this point. There's points to this where I say maybe there's injury involved and who knows. Maybe it's a ligament or two. It's messed up in the hand and stuff like that. Maybe they have no confidence in themselves. I don't know. Maybe the load management is, protecting their assets at this point. Whatever this load management crap is, it ain't helping. We got tonight's games, for example. New York Knicks tonight taking on the Washington Wizards tonight. Hopefully there's no load management bullcrap involved here. Giannis, obviously, who's out for the Bucks, not playing tonight against the Miami Heat, even though they're 4-point favorites, the Bucks. You got the Charlotte Hornets taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves. Brooklyn Nets versus the Chicago Bulls. Houston Rockets versus the Golden State Warriors. Oklahoma City Thunder taking on the Phoenix Suns. Kings taking on the Clippers. And the Cavaliers taking on the Atlanta Hawks tonight. So that's tonight's frame of games. Okay? That's that. So Now we have that slate out of the way for tonight. We gotta go. I'll go over Saturday game tomorrow. The reason I bring up I want to bring up the Charlotte Hornets for a minute. A tanking franchise. You think Michael Jordan cares about this right now? At this point, Michael Jordan couldn't give a rat's ass about how bad the Hornets are right now. He's watching this right now unfold, going, "I was right." Because right now he's making sure of it at this point. As sad as it sounds, he's making sure that his prediction comes true. Because realistically, there has not been an 82 game season for a player since 2019, and that was LeBron James, believe it or not, the guy who was all about saving management at this point. The difference was that he was doing it for a different reason. It was to honor Kobe Bryant. Now, obviously, it didn't go the way it went, pitcher-wise, foundation-wise, imagining-wise. But bigger picture was that he still didn't win a championship for LA. So, what? Because you got 4 rings at this point, we should say thank you for that. That you won it for Kobe. That means now at this point, you don't have to be like you can just rest anytime you want at this point. And look, 82 games to me for an NBA regular season is not that bad, especially with the low management. So I've been hearing less games, like 72 games, 68 games, 60 games, 30 games. I say to myself, so when's it start going to appear at this point? Are they going to appear second half of that 60 game season and make it 40 games and they miss the first 20? You're still going to have that same problem. Did Michael Jordan ever argue for less games in the NBA regular season? Hell no. Never did it once. But you want to know what it is? They're trying to become more of a version of the NFL. Say, oh, you think more games helps your product? Well, it's making your product suck. But if we limit our games, it might make us top the NFL. And you ain't topping the NFL with your star players who refuse to play in certain games. And you're ripping out the fans for it. What a shame. What a crying shame. Speaking of the NBA, this is actually kind of funny last night. Charles Barkley and Kenny Smith were roasting Shaq. He took a sick day and got absolutely roasted by his NBA colleagues. This is according to Jimmy Traynor right now of Sports Illustrated. Also, you can listen to on the Sports Illustrated podcast, which he does every Thursday, which he records it on a Wednesday, but he's on a Thursday. And this is how it starts off. Could we be honest with one another for a moment? It's just me, and you're here, and many of you have been with me since the hot clicks days, so we can trust one another. Anytime a coworker calls out sick, you never fully believe said coworker is sick. Even if you know that coworker is sick, there is a tiny part of you that thinks, oh, they just stayed in bed, binge watch a show, and fart around all day. Now, that's a quote that I would say any day of the week. At my current job, at my jobs before this, my future career jobs, whatever happens to me next in the near future. That's what I'm thinking, and that's what the entire nation's thinking. Now, I would never say this out loud. And most of you reading this would never say this out loud. But we're not Charles Barkley and Kenny Smith, who had no problem mocking Shaq for calling out sick and missing Thursdays inside the NBA. I think I'm actually, I don't know if I got a video for this or not. I guess I don't. I thought I was going to have a video for this. I guess I don't have it. Before Ernie Johnson could even announce that Shaq wasn't feeling well, Barkley started right in and made a reference to the fact that Johnson, Barkley, Smith had hosted the show for years before Shaq joined. Quote, this is like 13 years ago, said Johnson. It's just the three of us. You know what Kenny called those? Asked Barkley. The good old days. When Johnson then told the audience Shaq wasn't feeling well, Barkley said, please stop it. The Inside the NBA graphic departments even got in the action, airing a photo of Shaq sitting on the couch, wrapped in a blanket. Barkley continued, just go down the street. You'll see him at the hookah bar. Smith then got his shots. If he took off and stayed in Atlanta, he's an idiot. If I take off, I'm going to be in Tahiti. When Johnson tried to explain that Shaq was sick, Smith said, he's not sick. Stop it. He's not sick. Then all three piled on with Johnson telling Shaq to man up, while Smith told Shaq to just rub some icy hot on it, and Barkley implored Shaq to bring his ass to the studio. I need to watch this now when I get done doing this recording for this podcast. So I will get a kick out of this, and I'll watch this in a little bit. But I thought that was kind of cool. And I wasn't even planning on talking about this today on the podcast, but I just thought to myself, you know what? Shaq calling out on Inside the NBA, and the guy, I can't remember any episode that he wasn't even on Inside the NBA. And really, honestly, the Inside the NBA, I'm used to being on Thursday. The fact it's on Tuesday and Thursdays, it's like, I kind of like the Thursday crew better. They've been doing it now for over 20 years. It's like, I guess I guess realistically, they've been doing it for longer than that. I think, trying to think when Ernie Johnson started doing it. I think it was 89. I think it was 90. We're going on 33 years almost with Ernie Johnson on Inside the NBA. So that was kind of comical that we saw that last night. NHL moves from last night. I need to get the NHL trade stories here. Bruins acquired Washington Capitals Dmitry Orlov and Garnet Hathaway in a 3-team trade with Capitals Wild. So here's what the draft implicates here at this point. I do have this on my Instagram story of what the Bruins got in return of this deal. And it was a pretty good damn deal. It was. You know, a lot of people may argue that it wasn't a good deal, that it may have just blown up in their faces, but before I get into deals, let me give you the scores from last night. So I have them right here on my phone. Actually, I have the trade right here, actually. Never mind. So we're going to go with that instead. So they got Dmitry Orlov, Garnet Hathaway, and Andrei Skotov. The Capitals got Craig Smith, a 2023 first-round draft pick, a 2025 second-round draft pick, a 2024 third-round draft pick, and a Wild got a fifth-round draft pick, 50% rotation of Orlov's salary. So they're splitting it 50-50, I guess. And the Wild get 25% of the Orlov salary. So I guess the Bruins get like a lesser version of it, so they don't have to worry about paying this guy as much, which is great. The Bruins went all the way around in this trade, I don't mind. Now, I get it. They gave up some draft picks. It's kind of a risk. But these guys are going to be around for a while at this point. I don't see these guys going anywhere. So the Bruins won this right now. They're already the best team in hockey right now going forward. But let me give you the scores real quickly, if I can go back to them. So let's start off with the game from last night. The Bruins got the 6-5 win over the Seattle Kraken. Series beat the Lightning in overtime 6-5. Oilers win 7-2 over the Penguins. Wild win 2-0 over the Columbus Blue Jackets. Canucks beat the Blues 3-2. Red Wings win 4-1 over the Rangers. Ducks beat the Capitals in Washington 4-2. Devils get the win over the LA Kings in overtime 4-3. Predators beat the Sharks 6-2. The Knights beat the Flames 4-3 in overtime as well, and that is that. That is the story on the day for NHL hockey news. That trade deadline right there. This trade deadline may be a little risky for what the Bruins allowed, what they gave up here, but if they're all in cashing out on this right now to get the Stanley Cup, I say go for it. Now, do I believe in them at this point? They're going to win the Stanley Cup? I don't know. You know, we've experienced this team choking before in the Stanley Cup final. They've choked in 2015 against the 2013 against the Blackhawks. They choked in 19 against the Blues. I really hope here, with the best record in hockey and probably the most wins in a season in Bruins history, that they don't choke this one. They need to win the Stanley Cup this year. They need to. In the worst way possible. Anyway, so that's all I have on the podcast front for today's episode. This is 114. I don't believe I have anything else to talk about in this whole thing. I don't believe. I think I have a baseball take that I found interesting here. Actually, a couple of episodes here. Former Mets, and before I go here, I need to talk about former Mets pitching coach Phil Reagan suing team over age discrimination. He was forced to retire, and the guy's 80, I want to say he's 85, 86 years old. Or maybe 83, I think. I think 83. But he is planning to sue the New York Mets for age discrimination. So another thing to add on the Mets list of stupid things to happen. That's it in a nutshell. It's stupid, most of this stuff. But the Mets have had like a track record now, this stuff of doing stupid things. This right here, maybe the dumbest one of them all for firing a guy because he was too old to be managing a team. And the funny thing of it is that the Mets never even complained about him once being too old. or being to blame for a team's loss. So to me, I think this was a dumb firing by the Mets, but they needed a scapegoat and they used him. So who knows? I don't see why they needed to go through that anyway, but it is what it is. Here's a random fact about Derek Jeter this week. I found this week on the internet. Derek Jeter had 650 first pitch hits and is more than any other player since 1988 when pitch-by-pitch statistics were first tracked. That's huge, by the way. And the fact that this guy is going to broadcasting next year, I wouldn't be surprised that was the first thing that was brought up in the first weekend for Fox when they actually do host the MLB on Fox games. So that's that. Let's take a look here. I think that's all I really have time to talk about here. Coach K for Duke is staying busy. He says, quote, I don't miss coaching. He's trying to be an analyst, though. He's trying to stay busy. He's trying not to be the guy that sits on the couch. He wants to stay busy by being an analysis for pregame shows for college basketball games. He's trying to get in the loop on that right now. I don't know if there's been any news about where he might be going. Fox, ESPN, CBS. I don't know where he'll be going. But he's been on interviews. He's been talking about he don't miss coaching at all. I think he should go back to coaching. I'm sorry. The Duke coach they have right now kind of sucks. I'm just being realistic right now. It is terrible of what they've become. They become a laughing stock after Coach K left. A laughing stock. I mean, I wouldn't say that about Duke realistically, but I call it like I see it. They have not been a good team at all. They're looking for the record that they have now. And it's kind of sad what has had happened to this point to this team. So it is what it is. Other than that, top 25 games going on that went on last night. UCLA beat Utah last night. Gonzaga got their big win last night over University of San Diego. Northwestern was ranked last night. Did not know that. Lost to Illinois. And St. Mary's is continuing to dominate like Gonzaga is. They're 25-5, by the way. Tonight's slate of games is there's only one game on the top 25. It's Xavier and Seton Hall. Xavier is a 1.5-point favorite over Seton Hall. Saturday slate goes as follows. Florida State at the 13th-ranked Miami Hurricanes. 6th-ranked Virginia playing at North Carolina. Virginia, by the way, lost to Boston College, by the way, in a 15-point win for Boston College. They were held under 50 points, Virginia was. Not a good look. St. Mary's taking on Gonzaga tomorrow night at 10 o'clock. You got Creighton at Villanova. You have Oklahoma at Iowa State. You have UConn at St. John's. Texas Christian University, TCU to be short right now, 24th ranked TCU taking on Texas Tech. Iowa State, by the way, 23rd ranked, and UConn's 18th ranked. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. 7th ranked Arizona at home against Arizona State. You got 8th ranked Texas at 9th ranked Baylor. Calling right now game of the day in Baylor. I think Baylor gets the upset win. I'm sorry. I know they're favorite, but they're going to get the upset win. 14th ranked Kansas State at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, by the way, favorite going into this game. So we might see two upsets here because I actually believe Oklahoma State will get that win. 25th ranked Texas A&M will play at Mississippi State. I think Mississippi State loses that game. Texas A&M just got a huge win over Tennessee at this point. They're not going to lose to the Bulldogs. 3rd ranked Kansas will take on West Virginia. You got Tennessee at home against South Carolina. 11th ranked Tennessee is home, and I think they'll be still 11th by next week with a win. DePaul's playing at 10th ranked Marquette. 17th ranked Indiana playing at 5th ranked Purdue. Number 1 ranked Houston taking on East Carolina. 22nd ranked San Diego is taking on New Mexico. And that is the last slate of games. That is for Saturday. That is for tomorrow. So that is that. That is it for this podcast. Tomorrow we'll be doing debates because I will be talking about another thing on the show tomorrow. I'm going to hold off until tomorrow and we'll reveal to all you when the time comes. Mike will probably be here for the show. We're going to just do one sport topic. If anything, we'll just probably review the games that are on that are going to be coming on tonight for both basketball and hockey. There's been some spring training baseball on, but I'm not going to cover spring training because that doesn't mean a damn thing. So that's that. I'm going to call it. Y'all have a good night. You know my social media and stuff like that. You will see me tomorrow. I will be saying the social media spiel tomorrow. But I am signing off. This has been Joseph Olivo. And right now, I leave you. Yes, I leave you with the theme song that I just played earlier for you. Right now, I don't know if I'm going to play the whole song or not, but here it is. Good night.